Hi everyone, Vicky here. I hope you're doing well. Today's card is this lovely Happy Holidays card that is going to be made using the Lawn Fawn Thanks a Latte. So I'm using both cups and some of the other features in there. I've already stamped those out with my favourite things Extreme Black, ready for this. And the papers I'm going to be using are from the Let It Shine pad by Lawn Fawn. I love this pad. I've bought two and I want more. I've already cut my pieces ready. So I'm going to start with the colouring. This is sped up to 2 times speed, just so that you're not watching me colour for what feels like forever. So I'm using all 3 of my red blends from my triblends, so my brush markers and my standard triblends, just so I can get the depth of shades that I want. So for the reds, I've got, I think it's 9, 7 and 5 are the ones that I've used on this. So the darker shade is the 9 on the end, then the 7 and then the 5. So I'm just blending from the edges to give it that cylindrical look. I'm quite proud that I said that word, I'm not going to lie. Also trying to do quite jagged edges to the colouring just so it gives it that shine look. I will be doing a double coat on this red, and also when I do the other mug, the body of that mug as well, I will be giving a second coat too. It just helps to define the dark and the light shades a bit more and makes the blends smoother in general. I'm much happier with it once I've put the second coat on, and you'll see as it settles and dries as well and the alcohol evaporates, it just ends up looking quite nice, and I like the depth of colour in the mug. I'm quite pleased with it. I'm going to use the same colours for the top ones. That's just me trying to push out a teeny tiny little mistake I made. Reds are notorious for bleeding. I managed to push most of it away, but I do cover it with one of the other images later on as well. I have already made, before I made this one of these cards is like a little bit of a test run to check the colours I wanted to use. So I do end up with 2 of this card, which I'm very grateful for because it ends up being really nice and I am really pleased with it. While I have my reds out, I'm going to use the dark red blend, which is the 3 of the lighter ones, just to colour in the red stripes on my candy cane. So I'm having the darkest on the inside edge where the bend is, and I have actually managed to get a 3 colour blend on these, which I'm kind of impressed with because it's not the hugest space to colour. And I'll come back and do the rest of the stripes later. I just wanted to do those while I had my reds out. Then I'm going to move on to my colours for the scarf. So for that I wanted to use the blue turquoise ones. Again, I'm using all 3 of the blue turquoise pens that I have across the options. So this gives me 9, 7 and 5 again. Again, it's just to get the amount of colours that I needed to get the blend that I want. I did try using just the 2 standard triblend pens, but they didn't give me all of the numbers I wanted to get the variance and the depth between the dark and the light, which I was aiming for on these. I really wanted to try and get that extra contrast in that. I only needed 1 coat on the scarf because it's not the hugest of images. Then came the cup, which again, all 3 pens for the jade green selection. And that goes 7, 5, 3 for these between the 3 pens. Again, putting the darker shade on the outside and trying to keep a relatively jaggy line just for the effect really of the glass. With this mug as well, I actually was a little bit scared, I'm not going to lie, trying to go around the snowflake that I'd stamped on it. While I'm just colouring this, and I will quickly explain, the images themselves on the stamp set, as you'll have seen, you get the mug and you get the cup, but they don't have anything in them or on them. They then have separate options to do either just the plain line inside for your drink line, or the one with the marshmallows is the two that I've used on here. So I have used my Misty to get those lined up to do the stamping. And then I also used the little snowflake that they had just to decorate that mug. The scarf's going to go on the red mug, just to give that a little bit of effect as well. And then I'll add the whipped cream to the mug that's got nothing in it apart from the drink, obviously. So I'm just trying to be extra specially careful around the snowflake. It is quite a delicate snowflake, and I didn't want anything to bleed in through that. While I'm colouring this mug and the tea, the whipped cream is going to go on the top of this. However, obviously I needed to colour all of the background in because I didn't know exactly where the positioning would be and what bits would be showing. So obviously it's important to make sure that everything was still covered. For the snowflake, I just used the gold yellow blend, and I just used the darker shade of those. I didn't do any shading on that particular piece. Again, it was just a little image. It didn't need it, I didn't feel. To do the actual hot chocolates, I used the tan shades, which is the darker of the tan options. I've tried quite a few different ones to see which one gave the nicest chocolatey, beveragey colour, and the tan shades came out the winner. I did try using some of the browns, but they just didn't quite give me the effect that I wanted. They looked too muddy, whereas this looks like it's an actual nice hot beverage. Best way I can do it. Again, trying to be extra careful while I'm going around these little marshmallows because I don't want icky marshmallows. So the next thing that I need to do is the marshmallows, the cream and the white bits of the candy cane. I didn't want to leave them pure white, so I am utilising my colourless blender. So for the cream, I'm colouring all of it in with the colourless blender just to get a layer of alcohol down. Then using the lightest of the tan colours to add a little bit of contrast, and then using that colourless blender again to blend it out. So you'll see it is a very subtle effect, but it just gives it that bit of colour. For the candy cane, I'm using the lightest of the brown greys, which is the 2, and doing the exact same thing. So a layer of the blender, a dab of the colour, and then blending it out. And then for the marshmallows, I used the pale pink, the middle one, the PP2, and again, coloured them in, added my shadow tone, and then blended that back out again, just so that it wasn't completely white and it had some colouring to it. I've started doing this quite a lot with things that are meant to be white, and I do find it gives me a nice option, especially with that particular marker. The blender is fantastic. So that's the images all cut out just with the corresponding dyes. What I need to do is just assemble my cream into the cup of hot chocolate. So I'm just using a little bit of wet glue to pop that on there. And then I'm just going to pop that to the side to dry. And then I'm going to do the same thing, just use a little bit of glue to attach the scarf to the mug. And I'll pop that to the side to dry while I work on the next stage of the topper. And the marker I was trying to remember was a Copic colourless blender before, just because it was going to annoy me if I didn't tell you. So I've just used a circle die that I had from a nesting die from Hunky Dory, and then I am using the Gathered Twigs Distress Oxide, and I'm just really gently bringing that in from the edge and putting it down onto my mat and pulling it from the mat. I don't want to obviously cover the whole thing. I just want a little bit of contrast so it's not just a plain white circle. And I thought this was a good colour to do it. It kind of ties in, you know, the hot beverage kind of shading into there. I did debate doing a green or a red with it being a Christmas card, but then I thought that would be too much of the bright colour. I just wanted that nice, gentle colour in. So that's just me needing to clean up the mess that I had made. I just used a baby wipe and a bit of kitchen towel to do that. And then that is my completed little circle. So I just need to position everything where I want it so I can put the sentiment on. The bottom part of that was a little bit darker, so I wanted to try and get the lightest section that I could in the top right, because that's where I'm popping my sentiment. and I'm just using the Happy Holidays out of the exact same stamp set. What I'm doing is I'm just going to lay those down in position, and then I'm just going to use a stamping block to do this. I'm not going to get my Misty out just for these. So I've just got my little acrylic block. Now I'm going to leave the images there so I know exactly where I want to put it. And I'm using the ground coffee prism ink. I remembered I had this and it was just a nice colour, rather than stamping it in black, to stamp it in a nice brown shade to keep the theme going. And then all I need to do is stick my images down now. So just again, a bit of wet glue. I am going to use foam tape to put my focal panel onto the card. So I didn't want to raise these any further with more foam tape, just to make it easier for postage. I didn't want to cause a problem with the postage. I wanted to keep them quite flat but have a bit of dimension on the panel. You'll see just at the bottom right of the cup is where the blending error occurred. So I am just going to use that mug to cover that up a little bit. Works perfectly. And that's just a pot of gilding wax that I'm just using there, just to keep that in place while I glue up my candy cane. And I'm just going to layer that at the bottom. I debated having it sticking into one of the cups, but I quite liked it just underneath. So I'm just going to set my focal panel aside while I finish my card blank. So for the card blank, I have just got an American A2 card, so 5.5 by 4.25. I've cut both those pieces of both those pieces of card to 2.5. And then I realised that my tape runner had run out and I don't have any refills for it yet. So I luckily had some of my older tape runners to hand, just my little disposable ones. So I'm just going to use those to go around the edges and then draw some lines on to make sure that it all sticks down nicely. I'm going to put down the pink paper first against the bottom of the page and just make sure that's nice and flat down. And then I'm going to run a slight bead of glue along the top to make sure that the cream piece will stick to the top of that, because obviously it will overlap slightly based on the size of the card. And then I'm just going to line that one up as well and make sure that's pressed down nicely. And then I'm going to trim off the excess at the side. Now, I wanted to have the two-tone on it, but I didn't want to have just that blunt join line showing. So I have some glitter tape in this lovely red. So I'm just going to trim that down and then take the backing paper off, and I'm going to stick that over that join line just to make it a little bit prettier. So I'm just trying to get that nice and straight. And then again, I just need to trim down the edges on that. I'm sorry that I lifted it a bit high and you can't really see exactly what I'm doing, but trust me, that's all I was doing, was trimming it down. Then I need to put some foam onto my focal panel. So I have my incredibly large roll of tape from Amazon, which I love. It's amazing. So I'm just cutting the panels and making sure I don't stick any foam right in the centre, because that's where the red banner of the tape will be, and I'm not sure how well the foam would stick to that, and it is a little bit lifted, so I didn't want to give it any odd extra dimension, so I just popped it to either side of that. I just needed to trim that bit a little. I also have serious issues with foam tape normally, but I do find this one is a little bit easier to peel off, so I'm eternally grateful for that, because I'm not great with foam tape. And then that just needs centering on there. And then as a final touch, I have my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. So I'm going to sparkle up the candy cane, the whipped cream, the scarf and the marshmallows, and then that will be that card done. Thank you so much for watching again, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have liked the video, please do hit like, and if you want to see more, press the subscribe button. It would mean so much to me, and I hope to see you guys all again soon. Bye!